Okay, a very good evening to everybody. Um, I'd like to welcome Rajesh Chandran, Senior Product Manager at Cisco. And he comes to us with a lot of experience with over 15 years experience as in network operations, as a network architect, product marketing for data center and cloud at Cisco Systems. And prior to that, he worked at Verizon as a senior IP network architect for Verizon in the US. And he comes to us with a rich experience in the area of solutions, in the area of data center, cloud, and various other technologies related to this. Rajesh has got a lot of experience in also dealing with product management, specifically from the data center, the cloud, mobility solutions, and also analytics, which is becoming a very crucial area as we can see today. With analytics and becoming a very critical area, and also along with it comes a lot of ecosystem partners that we need to deal with. And today a customer requires not just sales of product or and services, but he wants us to give them the business outcomes. So Rajesh is going to today talk about B4B, which is basically technology and services evolution to business outcomes. So how Cisco Systems is basically addressing that, and how Rajesh is going to give us the details of how this is going to become a reality in the upcoming future. So thank you, Rajesh, for coming and talking to us on this Industry Connect. And this Industry Connect session, I'm hoping that we have a lot of networking people, a lot of background with a lot of engineers and product leaders to be. So looking forward to you.
Thank you. Okay, hi, good evening everyone. That introduction was scary. I was like, man, that's a lot of technologies. I'm not here to talk about technology today. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay, great. So thanks for your time. I heard just outside that you've been in a day-long class, right? So class or classes. So hopefully let's keep this a little bit more interactive and informal. So any questions, just shoot. And the only thing I ask is, introduce yourself and tell me which company you work for or you used to work for, so I have some context. Okay. So again, I'm not going to go into another introduction. So I'm a senior product manager. I'm within Cisco Services, and our charter is to basically build solutions. So we look at the products that come out from our engineering. We look at the software that comes out from our BUs, and then we try and put a wrapper around it. And increasingly, as we move to as a service kind of a world, those lines between the traditional product and hardware is increasingly blurring. So in fact, we are actually launching a new set of products which to the customer is a single SKU, and he gets a product which is a hardware plus a software plus services, implementation support, everything baked in. So we're already on that journey. So the line between a traditional product manager and what's happening in services is already changing. So the topic today is actually very interesting, at least for me. It's B4B. So anybody heard of B4B or listened to B4B? Read the book? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, excellent. All right, so I'll have your attention then. So this is a new construct, and before I get into what is the construct and why should you know about B4B, let me try and kind of walk you through a little bit of what's happening. And can folks see these slides? Because I can't. It's a lot of glare. I don't know if this. Okay. Okay, that's much better. Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, so we start with my favorite tagline, right? What problem are you trying to solve? Why are we even here, right? And then what's in it for me, and then we'll talk about outcomes as a construct. I'll show you a short video on what's happening with B4B, and then we'll talk about outcome types and use cases and how we're trying to deal with it at Cisco. So give you some pragmatic real world examples, and then we can talk about some challenges that are happening and where this is going forward. Now the key thing is, all of you in the room as product practitioners or to be product practitioners, is what does this mean for product management, right? What do I take away from this? What's real in this? And that's what I need you to think through between now and the end of the presentation. As I said, feel free to stop me anytime. Okay. So quick show of hands. How many folks are in the hardware, any of the hardware companies? So Cisco, Dell, EMC. Okay, all right. How many folks in the software line, the Oracle, the SAP? Okay, fair mix. Anybody pure services play? Okay, perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better crowd. So good mix. All right. So this has implications for all three. Okay, and I'll show you how. So before I talk about B4B, why are we talking about B4B, right? So most of us in this room are making products, be it hardware, software, and or services, and selling it to enterprise customers for the most part. I mean, I don't know if there's any folks in the rooms on startups doing B2C, but as a general rule, I have them. Make sense? Okay. Now, what's happening interestingly is increasingly our interaction with market, not just the market analysts, leading market analysts, and I'll show you a few examples here, but with customers as well, is the IT budgets are under constant pressure. Lines of businesses are stepping in and saying, look, what is all this IT spending you guys are doing? I want to know what's happening. I want to be part of the decision making, whether it's sourcing, whether it's marketing, whether it's other lines of business. We are actually seeing it, and it's putting enormous pressure on the CIOs to be more effective, right? And there's a good reason why there's such a huge churn rate on CIOs happening around the world. So that's going on, and so few data points, right? So 90% of technology spending is going to be outside of IT control. So in fact, there are folks who are saying 5 years from now there are not going to be any CIOs. Pretty dramatic, right? Okay, so I talked about multiple decision makers being involved in IT decision making. So why is that significant? What's the big deal? So instead of talking to the director or VP of IT or the CIO to sell your platform, your software, services, now you have the sourcing guy in the room, the marketing guy in the room. What's the big deal? Anybody? What's different about it? What do they care about? I know it's 5 o'clock in the evening, but come on, anybody? What do those guys care about? There's no wrong answer, so you can say anything. So,
for example, I am a consulting firm.
Right.
I work with a lot of leading implementation consulting for human resource HCM products, hardware. So we talk to the CHR because there we get to know how risk maps is the requirement. Application, how investigated it is. So I think CIO will not have that kind of idea.
Good point. So CIO is not running the business, right? So he's an enabler. He's supporting the business, so he doesn't understand the minutia. Anybody else? Any other points of view? What do these guys bring to the table?
Because the siloed approach, like different LOBs, they don't purchase.
They already are, right? It's what we call shadow IT. I mean, Amazon Web Services is used by shadow IT mostly. Not a big surprise, right? Those guys care about results, ultimately, right? Like I said, the CIO is an enabler. If you're a line of business and you don't make your result, you get chopped, right? So the pressure to have a business impact is much more immense, I would say. Okay, so that's that. So look at business technology spending. So lines of business are already spending a lot of money. Like I said, shadow IT, and that number is expected to grow at about 7% CAGR at a time when we talk to CIOs and they say, hey, my budget is flat or it's declining. So these guys are effectively taking the money from here and they're just shifting it, right? That's what's happening. And I see this a lot in the area of analytics, where the lines of businesses have leapfrogged traditional IT in terms of using analytics, whether it's to look at customer experience, whether it's to look at service quality, service assurance, assess customer churn, especially in the mobile area. The marketing departments are way ahead of the IT in this area. We're still trying to figure out what is my analytics strategy and approach. Okay, all right. So what those guys ultimately care about is an outcome. What is my outcome? What are you doing for me? Whether you're IT, again, a hardware vendor or a software supplier or a service company or all the above. So before we get into B4B, anybody can define what's an outcome? What's an outcome? Do you guys hear that a lot these days? Do you hear a lot about outcomes these days? Yeah. So it's a new buzzword, right? So what's an outcome? What does outcome mean for you?
It's probably the result of a certain set of actions.
Okay, you didn't look at the slides before this, did you? Okay, all right. That's a good answer. All right. What else?
Also value, how does it bring in value, maybe cutting costs with a new solution, overall solution that will be for our end customer?
Outcome is a value, right? So outcome, I see a lot of folks still getting confused between outcome and output, right?
Customer penetration.
Solving customers' problem.
That's not an outcome, right? So how would you, so outcome has to be quantifiable. So yes, you can solve the customer's problem, but the customer's problem, that means your customer satisfaction has to go up by X points, your customer churn has to come down by Y points, or your ARPU has to increase by Z points. That is the outcome. So it has to be quantifiable, right? So let's look at some traditional definitions. So I think the gentleman was talking about a result, right? And in a consequence, something that happens as a result of an activity, okay? So Harvard Business Review says outcomes are the difference made by outputs. So you deliver an output, which is a product, hardware, software, services, and the outcome is the end result that the end customer sees from it. Makes sense? So what are some of the outcomes, right? So it go all the way from changing the world, improving lives, solving world hunger, to let's get down to our level, right? Improving customer experience, okay? Acquiring and retaining more customers, that's an outcome, okay? Reducing cost of sales, okay? Those are outcomes. These three outcomes are what the lines of business care about, at least in my experience. They don't want to hear you come in and say, buy our IT solution because it's going to help you reduce cost by X, your TCO is going to be Y, you don't have to hire a headcount, your OPEX will go down. They're not interested. Are you helping me achieve my outcome? Right? That's what they more care about. More than often not top line versus bottom line. Right? Okay. So is this the only set of outcomes? Are there other outcomes? Now that we've looked at the definition of what an outcome is, anything that comes to your mind? Are there companies in the B2C space that are using outcomes? Okay, let me give you an example. Sorry?
B2C must be increasing the user base. Repeat, say, would be an outcome.
Kushiyonki home delivery. So Kushiyonki home delivery is an outcome for who? Domino's Pizza. That's the outcome he's delivering. Kushiyonki guarantee. That's the outcome Lloyd's AC is promising you. Right? So it's not just B2B, it's B2C as well. That's an outcome. That's the end result they're promising you. Now, I don't know. I mean, I haven't asked people who ate Domino's Pizza they're happy or not, but that's what they claim. Right? So clear so far where we're going with this? All right. So let's talk about B4B. Okay. So B4B is a framework. I'm loosely defining it to help customers achieve their business outcomes. What we just saw, the end result. Okay. Now, I didn't come up with this. JB Wood and a bunch of other folks at TSIA, which is the Telecom Industry Association, came up with. And before that, they came out with a lot of this stuff as well. So if you haven't read Consumption Economics, I would strongly urge you to read it. If you haven't read B4B, I would strongly urge you to read it. So B4B basically stands for business for business, right? And it talks about transformation where you've gone from B to B. I'm selling products and services to businesses to enabling outcomes for businesses. All right. So with that, let me just play a quick video and then I'll get back to the slides. Oh, it's the Explorer. How do I?
Very simple notion, a very simple concept that lies at the heart of B4B. Every day, your company wakes up in the morning and it thinks to itself, I'm a supplier. I have built these products and I've got to sell these products into the marketplace. That's how we get rewarded. That's how we get measured. That's what we think about all day, every day. How do we push our products successfully into the marketplace? But your customers wake up every day thinking a different thought. They wake up thinking, I got a business to run. I got to improve the results of that business. I need to get better at producing specific outcomes for the company. We have to learn to grow revenue. We have to learn to cut costs. We have to learn to improve customer satisfaction, to boost your employee productivity. So suppliers wake up every day saying, I got a bunch of products I got to push out into the market. And customers wake up every day thinking, I got an outcome, a business outcome I got to improve. I'm going to submit to you that the next decade in this industry is about that white space in the middle, about the nature, the structure of the relationship between our product-focused companies and our outcome-focused customers. How we think about that white space, how we organize to improve what happens in that white space, how we journey from being a product-oriented supplier to a business partner with our customers is going to determine whether you're a victim or a beneficiary of all the disruptive transformations that are going on right now. And we don't think there are 1 million permutations in that white space. We don't think there are hundreds of models. We think there are 4. 4 basic models that your company can choose to go to market with across different categories of solutions and products and geographies and so forth. So I want to talk about those today.
Okay, so you can just go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so that made sense. So how are product companies measured, right? How many SKUs did I sell? How many units did I sell? How many licenses did I sell? What is my quarterly bookings number? How much revenue? Yeah, right. And of course, how much margins, gross margins did I make? What was my profitability? Does the customer really care about that? Not, right? We do have metrics like customer satisfaction, but that's just to make sure that the customer is not dissatisfied with whatever product or service we are accompanying. Do we really track how customers use the product? Are they really satisfied with it? Right? How are they consuming the product? Is it achieving the outcome for them? Right? So these are the questions that B4B is raising, because it's still, at the end of the day, we can talk about user centricity, customer centricity and all of that. Yes, when we write a PRD or an MRD, we gather requirements from the customer, but that's again through a very narrow lens. It's not to achieve our business outcomes. You know, you're probably talking to the engineering guy or a team of developers and saying, hey, give me your requirements or let me understand what you're doing. It's not in the context of business. And once it's deployed, a lot of cases you have no idea how much that product is the customer consuming. So there's the common Pareto rule, right? So, 80% of customers only use 20% of your product software features, right? Why is that? Why don't most people go beyond the 20%? Because nobody is helping them drive the adoption. Nobody is helping them with the use cases beyond that, right? So that's, yeah, please.
While the term is the examples you are giving it, so it seems like more you are like customer centric or the consumer centric. So why it's not B4C? Why it's only for B4 business for business?
Yeah, so business for business could be, that business could be an SMB, it could be an MNC, or it could be a mom and pop. It could be anything, right? So it can be a small, large enterprise. It could be a small and medium business. It could be anybody. So it's not restricted to just a typical large enterprise. No, it's still a business.
So the end user, say the example you given, the Kushioka delivery, the end user, the customers who is having the pizza, right? So for them, like if I'm thinking about the outcome based, and if the Domino's is thinking about his customers, what's the outcome, what they are thinking about their product. So it's more about the business. So what's the business? The end, the second B is about. It's all about the
yeah.
customer.
So this is business for business. So the question you are raising is, if I'm Domino's Pizza, how do I measure the outcome I'm delivering for the end customer who's purchasing the pizza, right?
Yeah.
That's your question. That is still, I would say, relatively unexplored. So this is more in the context of business for business, as in product companies selling to large, medium, small businesses. So not in the B to C kind of domain. Okay. Primarily, that's the definition. Although this could be applied. Okay. So the problem, or the white space that JB Wood is talking about, what we have on the left, right? So we have products, I have a product portfolio, it needs to grow, I need to launch new products, I need to gain market share, right? I need to increase my market penetration, let's push, let's get it out there, let's drive adoption, let's get some wins, yeah? And the customer is saying, I need to grow my revenue, cost is a huge problem for me, I need to reduce risk. In a lot of cases, these two don't come together. Okay, unless you're doing a complete end-to-end consultative engagement and handoff with the customer and stuff. Basically, so the way they are breaking this down is, so supplier, again, the supplier is any product vendor, who's in this space, right? So that's the definition of supplier. So according to this framework, most companies today, be it Fortune 100 or SMBs or anybody else, providing these solutions are either a level 1 or level 2, okay, supplier for the most part. So basically what you're doing is you're shipping, a piece of hardware, it comes with a standard support, no customization, or you're shipping a flexible solution that is configurable, that's customizable with some services, or you're shipping some enterprise software which is highly configurable, highly customizable with a lot of professional services behind it. Right, a Microsoft, an SAP, an Oracle, etc. That's 1 and 2. 3 and 4 is where, according to B4B and JB Wood and others, these suppliers need to evolve, because otherwise it's going to be a problem. So why is it a problem? Why can't we continue to do? Why can't the Oracles, the SAPs, the Ciscos, the EMCs continue to do what they're doing today? What's the big deal? What's happening?
One is the cost is definitely coming down, the budget is coming down.
So the IT OpEx spending, right? Both have CapEx and OpEx. Yeah, that's true.
The aspect is like the technology revolution is happening. So the whole landscape is moving towards cloud, social analytics capability. So there could be a completely new player who's making the best use of this land.
Yeah, what has Amazon Web Services done to IBM, Oracle, SAP?
They're probably the level 3 supplier now. So
Yeah. What has it done to them? Right? So it is basically move the control from IT to line of business. That's to start with. Now I don't need a huge CapEx budget. I just need an OpEx. I can pay as I go or pay as I grow. Okay. And I'm happy with the service, I'll pay for it, I'll upgrade to a service. I'm not happy, I'll switch to another infrastructure as a service vendor. Right? So this concept of selling an enterprise product, a software license locking in for a period of years, saying, wait, you need, any Oracle folks in the room, so you need Oracle 11 dot whatever for this new feature, you have to wait for another 6 months, and that license will cost you $100,000, it's gone. There's no lock-in now, right? The cloud, that's not my problem, you take the risk. So basically the risk has shifted, I would say the risk and the burden has shifted from the customer to the supplier. In a cloud-based model, the customer doesn't own the assets, the customer doesn't own the risk and the overhead of managing those assets, maintaining it, all that stuff is not there, right? It's all seamless to him. He doesn't know what's happening behind the screen, right? Whether you're running what version of software you're running. He's just using the storage or the VM for whatever period of time, and he's paying you for X amount of service. So it's a combination of, as Srinivas alluded to, the technology spend shifting and combination of the technology transformation itself is happening. So again, according to the framework, and again the jury is out, we don't know the answer to this, over a period of time, if most of these suppliers don't move to this side, they will be left behind. Okay, and there are some symptoms you're already seeing of that in terms of stagnant growth, falling profitability, etc. Customers don't want a heavy touch, engagement model with hundreds of people sitting on site and doing services. They want measurable business outcomes. So I'll talk a little bit about level 3 supplier later in terms of what we are doing, what Cisco is doing around that. Okay, so tracking so far? Okay, so the other thing I also wanted to mention is total cost of ownership. So the customer is now gaining a heck of a lot more flexibility in terms of how they use and consume the technology for a lot less TCO. Think about his total cost of ownership. Again, the cloud example. His total cost of ownership has come way down. Now it's your job as a supplier or vendor to take on all that costs and make it work for him. Okay, I just wanted to show you some examples, right? So we've talked about the usual suspects. So Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, Salesforce is kind of in the middle, with this. They're also in a transition. I wanted to just touch on one of them. I think Amazon's here. So Redflix. So has anyone heard of Redflix? So it's not Netflix, Redflix. So Redflix is basically a traffic management system company, very interesting. So they make traffic management systems, that control your traffic signals, security cameras that can, take pictures of offenders, those who are speeding, etc. So why are they in this pyramid? It's because they are charging customers for outcomes. So I will make sure that your compliance, the red traffic light works for X amount of time in a month or X amount of hours in a week, and if it works, you pay me. If it doesn't, either you don't pay me or you pay me at a discounted rate. Sounds fair? That's why they're there. Okay, so B4B is ultimately nothing but suppliers delivering outcomes for the business, for the customer's business. That's what this is about. Okay, so having kind of touched upon outcomes and B4B, let me talk about what are the kinds of outcomes? So we keep saying outcome, what are the examples of outcomes? And these are examples that we are working with today. So this is this is a real example of what we are doing. So I'll start from the bottom. So what we are calling operational outcomes. So again, most of the IT spending and all the products that happen, vast majority of them are in the operational space, right? So either to get IT up and running or to have IT optimizing in a smooth fashion, right? So take it hardware, software, services, it doesn't matter. It falls typically in these 2 buckets, maybe 2 or 3 buckets. So in that sense, operational outcomes are about improving that operational efficiency. Okay, so there is a set of outcomes. And so, and some examples around that, right? So application availability, uptime, asset utilization. So a lot of CIOs are saying, hey, we need to sweat our assets more, right? What does that mean? I want to use my assets more so that it gets utilized. Okay, so that's an example. We talked about TCO. So that's an example of an operational outcome. Now the next level, and that's typically stopping at a IT or a CIO level. The next level speaks to the line of business. So we talked about line of business earlier. So innovation outcomes, right? Look, I don't know what all this cloud technology is. If it's going to help me get to the market faster, do it by all means, right? I just want my outcome, and here's a budget for it, right? So for them, it's all about improving agility, increasing the speed of business, getting to a solution faster. So the only reason they will choose to adopt a new technology, so these are all early adopters. Adopt a technology is because they want to get to the market faster. So again, the example I was giving about marketing departments and analytics, right, is like fire and oil, because it gets them to the market faster, right? They want to get together. And then the top level is business outcomes. Then really you're talking at the CXO level, right? And so at that level, it's pretty simple. There are only 2 or 3 things going on, right? So you're helping me grow my revenue, or you're helping me reduce my OPEX. Those are usually the couple of things going on. So these are the kinds of outcomes. Now, how do we get there? So how do we figure out what is the outcome the customer wants, and then how do we create a solution for it, right? And this is the framework we use to that end. Now, so this might sound like, okay, so does an outcome mean now I have to do a heavy duty consulting engagement with the customer, meet with the CXO and all of that stuff? Not necessary. So if you think about it, most of you are already in your customer's environment, right? Selling to those customers, working with those customers. So you have a fair sense of what's going on. The thing that's different with this approach is the quantification. So you need to be able to quantify based on the imperatives and the focus areas that have, what are the KPIs we need to measure, because an outcome is only as good as you can measure, right? Otherwise it's just something we talk about. And so you need to be able to do that, and then you need to be able to visualize and showcase that to a customer on a scorecard. So anybody here use Tableau, ClickView, Burst? Yeah, so what's ClickView? What does it do for me?
We use it for KPI monitoring.
So why do you need to view KPIs?
Just to give a sense of confidence to the management whether we are doing it.
Yeah, so you want to know what impact it's making, right? What's the business impact? So that's the reason that the Tableaus, the ClickViews, the Bursts, the Targets of the world are so popular now, because data visualization immediately. I can look at 10 different sources of data, 20 different sources of data, structured, unstructured, and I define as a CIO or lines of business what is my KPI, write a formula or write an algorithm, and it grabs the data and I can show it on my scorecard. Immediate business impact. So my point is, most of us know what are the pain points and challenges that customers have. You just need to quantify it with KPIs, and I'm going to show you a few examples of those KPIs. Okay, so I already talked about this. So why are KPIs important? Because how else the customer knows that you've solved their problem? How else do we know that we've solved the customer's problem, right? Okay, and how do we know we are making progress towards that goal? Alright, so here are some examples. So again, I'll start at the bottom. So these are the IT stuff is, I think, should be fairly similar, familiar to you, right? So again, application availability, threat mitigation in the areas of security or cyber security, compliance, legal regulatory compliance, if you're in the financial insurance sector, right? So on and so forth. So those are some of the things. Time to deploy, time to value, time to market. Those are the innovation outcomes KPIs. And then on the business outcomes, helping revenue growth rate, percentage of new revenue, percentage of new customers that you've onboarded, Customer retention satisfaction. What's the challenge with this? What's the challenge with these KPIs?
It's difficult to interpret the customer if you put a bunch of KPIs and customer could get lost, couldn't able to connect the dots.
Good.
You got a little handbook he has to do.
Yeah. Anything else? Measurement is a problem. Yeah.
These kind of outcome-based things, it has been at least for the service industry, it's very quite common. Even I remember I used to work in it 5 years back. We used to have like, for example, any telecom company, random telecom company in India, Airtel, Idea or whatever, everyone has outsourced their IT and to a certain extent the network to the vendors. So, for example, we used to have a contract with IBM saying it's a revenue share. I just pay from 2% of my overall revenue and rest all I take. But what I saw is, although initially it was very good for Airtel also, reason being no asset, capex, so they can ROI, unlike traditional AT&T and not, they become very asset light and the payback is very quick. They shed a lot of assets in the college. But as times go by, what happens is, first of all, they themselves feel that they are overpaying things. And second, a lot of exceptions will be there. In terms of you're saying overall outcome, so even smaller IT issue, all those things gets blown up. So if you today see out of that, even neither Idea or Bharti, they all removed all these outcome-based things.
So Bharti for me is an exception to the rule. So I mean I was also in the telecom space. Most telecom providers around the world prefer to keep the control of the infrastructure. It's core versus context. If you have 5 nines uptime in an enterprise, big deal. If you have 4 nines uptime in a telecom provider, basically your business is gone, right? Because that is your core. So that makes sense in terms of them moving from an outsourcing to an insourcing model. But that being said, they are still looking to make, in terms of new procurement for new technologies, etc., they are looking to new ways of consuming and new ways of paying for those services. That's the point we're trying to make, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Is that, isn't it kind of repositioning or branding the way suppliers are saying? So probably they still have the similar intent earlier where they're trying to solve customer problems. But how does it really quantify or translate into value creation is, I think, the piece that is being added now.
So
Which is essentially not a change in the service that they have offered, but it's like how they are positioning themselves.
yes and no. Yes, to a large extent it is about quantifying the value that you're delivering to the customer. But what I'm saying is when you're designing the product, you now have to make sure that it's a lot easier for them to consume and that they consume more because they're going to pay you based on the consumption. So earlier it was how many features can I get out there and how quickly can I get it out there. And now it's like you really need to get into the psyche of the customer and understand how he's going to use it. And I'll talk about what are the organizational changes you have to make. So there is a new discipline called customer success that's coming up. It's an entirely new area of business. And those guys are goaled and measured on sitting with the customer and making sure that they're adopting and seeing the value of the technology that they're using. So you now have to think through a lot more use cases if you're a product manager than you would do earlier. See, what are most product managers goaled on? Let me answer this question in a different way. What are product managers goaled on? Anybody? What are you measured on? What's your performance review based on if you're a product manager?
How well they
Profitability for your
Sorry?
profitability for your
How many new releases or
Bingo. 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, that's what you're goaled on. How many releases can I get it out there? Profitability is utopia, doesn't happen. So most of the time it's, did I get my release out on time? How many releases did I get out this year? Very less it's about how many of the releases have I consumed? Did I help grow the market share? So forget even the customer, even on the supplier side, Did I improve the market share? People struggle to answer that question.
Profitability should be considered. I mean, just releases it's not as per.
It should. I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just saying what's happening in reality. It should. So in most cases, if you are a product owner, what that basically means is you are responsible for both top line and bottom line. So, okay. So I think the gentleman at the back, yeah. So he kind of hit the bullseye. So you have to show line of sight. That's what this is all about. So between the KPIs that I am delivering, what does the network infrastructure application uptime have to do with revenue or increased profitability or reduced cost? You have to show line of sight, right? And so you've gone from just saying, hey Mr. Customer, you use this many features, and I think a lot of companies are guilty of doing this. You use this many features, you consume this much, to okay, our features and software helped you improve your efficiency by X%, Y%, to we've helped you reduce the cost per transaction by that much. So you see the change in the conversation, right? Last year you used this many licenses, this many features on the box, to we've really helped you reduce the amount of time it takes to launch the thing by X, to reduce cost per transaction. So what's the challenge with this? This all seems logical. What's the challenge with this?
It's the risk that gets transferred to customers.
That's true. That's built into the model. How do you get to these? How do you calculate these KPIs? How do you compute these KPIs?
You should track, you should log all the usage of the customer.
So let's assume you have all the data you need. Customers just take everything, take all the data you need.
Build a good metrics out of it, show them the
Actually, drawing the boundaries also I find it as a challenge.
It's challenging.
Yeah, because
But again, maybe at the end of the month, you just get all the metrics and make a visit to your customer place and just
So
explain to
the biggest thing is this: you need customer buy-in to do this, right? So this is not for everybody. I should have said this at the beginning. This is not for every customer. This is definitely not for a really large, really small customer who's probably spending a few thousands of dollars on products. This requires customer maturity. So customer is willing to open up and say, look, here are my input variables, and you are sitting there saying, I'm going to compute the cost and the metric, and I'm going to tell you how my technology is helping you. There need to be exchange of information. They need to be open and willing to share data with you, but they need to be comfortable. So getting the buy-in from the customer is the biggest stumbling block in this.
And I believe the product companies also need to state the strategy, you bring it up, on usage purpose. Because when I see this model, right, the Boeing engine is rightly deployed in such model. It says that usage based on the hour,
Correct.
and it's completely on.
Yeah. So the other example. So you mentioned Boeing. The other example I was reading about is GE. So GE locomotives. So we've been talking about IT all this time. Let's take another example. So GE locomotives, the railway line companies locomotive companies are basically saying, give me more fuel efficient engines, give me more less fuel consuming, less greenhouse gas emitting engines, and give me more engines that are up and running that can run hundreds or thousands of miles at a time with minimum downtime maintenance, and I'll pay you. So suddenly GE has gone from becoming a manufacturer of locomotives to owning the outcome, saying, I own the engine, I'll run the engine for you, I'll make sure that downtime is less than 5 hours a month, and the railway line company is paying GE per usage for a month. We're talking about Amazon Web Service. Here is GE doing that with locomotive engines. That's a true outcome. Bosch is another example. So Bosch aircraft maintenance. So aircraft company says, Bosch, you're the experts. I want to reduce downtime. I want to minimize the amount of downtime that the plane is on the runway. Why? Because it costs more. Every time it's sitting at the gate, they have to fork out money to the airport authority. So you make sure that the time the plane is at the gate is below X, whatever the threshold is, and I'll pay you for it. I'm not paying you maintenance costs anymore, or I'm not going to sign a large maintenance contract with you anymore. Per plane, how much downtime you can reduce, I'll pay you for that.
Don't you think so? It's more than customer buy-in. It's about the product companies strategizing differently.
Yeah, so we are talking about suppliers here, which is the product company, so they have to change the way to do it. So my point is with those two examples is it's happening, right?
Let's take a pretty easy case. If you are selling some analytics to your retailers, just show them after the end of the campaign a lift in their sales.
Analytics is easier. It's easier because analytics is speaking the language of line of business. Increase in footfalls, increase or reduction in ARPU, right? Number of patients with hospitalization. It's already speaking the line of business, so they get it immediately. Whereas IT doesn't, traditionally at least. Okay. All right. So some more examples of the kind of metrics. Right, so this is I think from Forrester. So Forrester again looked at, so again the stuff on the left should be fairly familiar to you. The question is the stuff on the right. How do you connect the capex to opex spending? How do you connect the increase in the revenue to the stuff on the left? That's the challenge. Okay, so I'll just summarize or wrap up with a few things, right? So this is not. So I'm not implying that suddenly all of you go and become consultants and go sit with customers and try to understand what they are doing and give them a pitch. So in fact, it'll hurt your credibility. So in fact, I was reading about consulting companies saying, customers telling consulting companies, especially like the big four, right, the McKinseys, the BCGs, saying, I'll pay you 50% now. I'll pay you 50% after you told me that $50 million savings I'm going to get. I'll pay you after that, once I get that. So even consulting companies are having this problem. So if you show up in front of a customer and you talk about outcomes, or you just pitch it as a new sales or a marketing deck, you're going to hurt yourself. Okay. This is not about making, selling or shipping more products or features, or trying to expand spend. Although indirectly you will end up expanding the customer spend if you adopt this methodology. What it is driving customer adoption of your products and features and helping them achieve the results, and looking at consumption models where you're charging for outcomes. Okay. So I told you, what this is changing, right? So from an organization perspective, if you are a product company, so there are two areas you need to think about. So Cisco, for example, we've started an organization called Global Customer Success, and that organization is not goaled on top line, bottom line, how much bookings we did and all that. That organization is only goaled on how much adoption you're driving with the customer. So they're completely day two supporting the customer and trying to understand the use cases and driving adoption of the product. That's it, right? They're not trying to do sales pitch. They're not trying to sell more. Okay. So consumption analytics. So we talk about a lot of analytics. How is the consumption analytics in terms of how the user is, the customer or the end user is using the information? And one of the examples here is a lot of customers want. This is just from my personal experience. We have a infrastructure analytics tool. They want to know, tell me how am I doing compared to my peers, my competitors in the industry. Don't show me all this benchmarking stuff. Tell me how I am using or consuming this product relative to others and how it's helping them. So they really like that stuff. So competitive benchmarking, so which is also will come under consumption analytics. So this is again a new area that we are seeing evolve. Okay, so this is just an example. I just want to show you a template. We are using this template. So when we build so the question I think the gentleman was asking earlier. So what does this mean for a product manager? So when you build a new product now, you need to have another column in your product feature matrix saying what are the KPIs I'm going to measure to drive adoption of the product, which probably you didn't earlier. Maybe some folks did, most folks don't. And what's the target outcome I'm going to achieve for the customer? So you basically are starting to build a product by defining the outcome, defining the KPIs to measure the outcome, and then the rest falls in. So this is net new if you're a product practitioner. Okay, so I'll just wrap it up with that. So again, like I said, implications for a product manager, either you may have new teams that you're working with which are looking at roles around customer success or consumption analytics, or those roles may be within your teams themselves. So customer KPI tracking, measurement and is a huge challenge, right? How do you do it? We have folks on our team who are doing nothing but coming up with KPIs. So we have folks working full time on our team who are looking at KPIs and coming up, creating a KPI library, a KPI inventory to map to existing products. So these are product managers, by the way, these are not business analysts. We have product managers who are spending their full daytime job building KPIs, okay, so that we can show the outcome for the customer. Data, I talked about data handshake problem in terms of access to data and also from a measure and reporting standpoint. Any questions or comments? This is all, it's getting late.
One comment here is like the revenue realization of the supplier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all very innovative models that they are coming. It's all evolving at this point in time. So, from the services point of view, also we are also going very aggressive in trying to sell the customer sign on around on this one. But there are a lot of variables. One is like trying to hold that sort of thing.
So,
traditionally, you sell product, years, all those things. How do you, and it's traditionally a partner-led organization, and most of your sales happen through partners. So, how, in terms of actual, it's all fine, you can show.
how does it work financially, I think is the question you're asking. So let's ignore the partner-led model because that is go to market. Let's assume you're selling all this directly. So I'll give you an example. So an example, recently we had a deal with a large financial service customer, and the deal is for $10 million for a period of I think 3 or 4 years, and was based on this outcome model. We've agreed on a set of KPIs with the customer, okay, before even the deal was booked, and the customer is going to pay X amount, whatever the amount is, $2.5 million end of each year. Now the clause says that if the KPIs are not met and the outcomes are not achieved, then the customer has conditionality in terms of being able to withhold a percentage, not all of it, a percentage of the thing. That is how the enforceability comes into picture. That's how it gets enforced from a business standpoint. We are still working out the consumption models of other way, but typically it's around incentive or penalty. That's typically what I have seen. Beyond that, so let me put it very bluntly, right? What the customer said is, you should feel the pain when I feel the pain. You should feel more pain when I feel the pain. So service credits won't do for that.
How much of this measurement results in new product lines and stuff like that? Because with the existing product lines is what you're trying
Great question. I don't know the answer. The only thing is it will lead to a lot of insights, and that's why I was talking about consumption analytics. Consumption analytics is going to give you insights into why the customer is using the product in a certain way or not using the product in a certain way, which will then close the feedback loop with the product manager to say, okay guys, we need to fix this in this release or fix that in this release. So that's the feedback loop mechanism with the product manager. And it'll probably bring up ideas as well, saying, hey, why didn't we think about this? So it's not just about benefit for the customer, it's also benefit for the supplier.
So the table that you showed, which you're using, how much has that helped you to?
Not yet, right? Because we are very early stages of the journey. This is a journey. There are very few companies doing this. I would say there are a handful of companies that are doing this, right? Everybody is trying it. SAP is trying it. Microsoft is trying it. Cisco is trying it. A core group of companies under TSI are trying it. I think it's early days. The fact that we have a global customer success organization, which we didn't 2 years ago, is itself a huge huge thing. So yeah, but eventually we need to get to that. Otherwise, we'll continue to make products the old way. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of the tagline, right? So increasing customer value or improving customer value by helping them consume more. So if I mean it's kind of logical in a way if you think about it. If they see value in your technology, product or solution, they will consume it more. I mean, makes sense, right? And when do they see value in your technology, product or solution? When it's achieving an outcome for them. So while outcome is more of a B4B is more of a branding thing, but if you think about it, what you're trying to do is you're taking the spotlight and putting it on the consumer or the customer adoption of the technology and the way you're measuring the end result. That's what's different about this, and that's why it's a new discipline. Okay, so apart from the B4B book and all that, I would encourage you. So you can go sign up. It's free. You can sign up as a TSI member. You can get access to their webinars, to their blogs, and all that stuff. Pretty good stuff. Very seasoned guys. Most of it is high tech, but it's relevant to. They have case studies and examples from other verticals as well, and you can look at their blogs as well. Okay. So with that.
Specifically only for direct sales, or is it also for partner ecosystem?
So partner selling to a business, yeah, very much. See, it's business for business, right? Now that business on the left hand side, that supplier can be a large hardware or software vendor, or it can be a partner, or it can be a systems integrator. It can be anybody. So you're talking about business selling to a partner?
No, business selling to a business with a partner in between who does the services. So will it still work in this context?
So who is I think that was the question earlier about the partner, right? So who owns the relationship with the customer? Is it the partner, or because we have both models? So in Cisco, we have both models where we go direct. We have a master service agreement with the customer. We sell directly to the customer, and that's the transformational customers. In a lot of other cases, you sell with or through the partner, right? Now, if the partner is owns the customer relationship, the partner owns the account, then it's up to them to drive this, okay? Because ultimately they own the relationship. But we are going with partners in a lot of cases when we're doing this. Yeah, and in terms of benefit to the supplier, apart from the product input, what we are seeing is the deal sizes are significantly larger. Customers committing to multi-year, when they're saying you're talking about, you're going to measure KPIs, you're going to show them customer adoption over a period of time. There are customers who would only talk about annual contracts are now talking about multi-year deals. Deal sizes are significantly larger. But the pressure is, or the challenge is, to be disciplined about measuring and reporting on those KPIs on a quarterly or whatever the cadence is, and showing the outcome to the customer, which is why you cannot do it in a traditional sales cycle. Traditional sales cycle is guy comes in, shows a demo, POC, get the PO, go home, and then the support guy, TAC or whoever it is, he picks up the call when something breaks. The reason for having global customer success organization is to capture that space in the middle. They are there sitting with the customer and helping them drive adoption, which is why they're not gold on sales. So you need that. Without that in the middle, and then of course now what are the tools they're using? They're using consumption analytics, and they're losing a lot of tools to do their jobs. Without that, it's very difficult. Yeah.
So I had a good question. There was a panel session that I was moderating months ago, and Wipro presented a case where they worked with a large retailer in the US. And it was a service contract based on outcomes. So I'll tell you what it is, but I would like for you to tell where this would map in that framework.
Sure.
What they said is, we will save 30% of the electricity bill in this chain of retail stores that we have throughout the country. And only after we save the 30% of electricity bill should you pay us as a percentage of the additional savings. So first 30%, we're actually going to prove to you that we can do this. After that 30% savings of electricity bill, we this conversation because customer doesn't even ask, neither does Wipro care to mention what sensors they're going to put,
Right.
which technology they're going to deploy. So it's an irrelevant discussion on product, but it's more outcome, right? So in that maturity curve that you have shown, well, you can go back.
Yeah, so the supplier may, so just let me make sure I got this right. So you're saying Wipro gets paid 30% upfront? No.
Nothing upfront.
Nothing upfront.
Well, so they did not disclose the details of the deal that they had done.
That's okay, yeah.
The premise of the discussion
Yeah,
was
yeah.
nothing upfront.
Okay,
Assuming it's nothing upfront.
right.
And only when I prove to the customer
That I've read,
proposed value that I have on PowerPoint,
right.
that you will save N number of dollars, the hockey stick that we show,
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
typical Cisco, typical McAfee, typical Intel, exactly right? That's
Yeah,
what-
yeah.
So then we'll forget the hockey stick. At the end of the quarter, you have electricity bill today, and you have electricity bill that will come after I install it.
Right.
And we see the delta. And at the end of the year, first 20% savings, no cost to be paid. To prove that this is going to be significantly automated. After that, whatever the savings comes, we take a percentage of that savings.
Okay, so the first 30% of savings, it's like baseline. You're not, they don't get paid for it. It's the incremental, it's the delta, they get paid for it. And Wipro will be, I'm assuming, measuring and monitoring and tracking that up, obviously.
They have to be full control of the remote electricity
Right.
monitoring and control. Right?
So it's like a remote infrastructure management kind of a RIM kind of a thing. Okay. Okay. So was this on the table or Wipro was already doing this?
Well,
We don't know.
They didn't want to divulge details, right?
Okay.
Public
No, it sounds very similar to what we are hearing as well, right?
It's not math, it's not optimized, it's not outcome. Right? It is outcome.
So the outcome is OPEX reduction, right? So basically energy savings is tied to an OPEX result. So if the CIO, if you kind of step back, the discussion would have happened basically is the CIO would have said, guys, I don't care, we have to take a 30% haircut on OPEX this year. Then he would have turned around and said, energy, you take 10, infra you take 10, some other guy you take 20, right? And so then it flows downstream from there, right? So then the vendors and the partners get brought in and say, okay, which of you guys can save me 10% or 20% of the electricity bill? The outcome to me really is not the savings on the energy bill, OPEX reduction.
So in this case, the customer is not even asking for this so-called 30% reduction.
Who's asking for it? Wipro is proposing it.
Wipro is proposing
Oh, okay.
that you let us take over your electricity
Okay.
management.
Okay.
And
So customer is not looking for an outcome.
customer didn't even know that this is even possible to do.
Okay. Tough one. So I would say they're definitely beyond level 2. I would say they are on a level somewhere between a level 3 and a level 4 if what you're saying is true. If they are going and positioning to the customer. Now the point you made about the product, I would say it does have an impact because now you can't just throw buggy software or stuff over the fence which cannot then be measured to the KPIs. We were talking about the different types of KPIs which will then measure to the outcome. You better put in your not your latest and greatest software but your tried and tested software, your systems and monitoring, because you getting paid depends on it. So it has major ramifications for our product management as well. And then the analytics in terms of how you measure and monitor, which is also falls under product management. That's where the implication for product management comes into play. But it's clearly, I would say, a level 3, if not a pure level 4. I don't know of any pure level 4 suppliers out there. Definitely a level, I would say more like a level 3 that can do that.
Something like Cisco would venture into an offer like this to Airtel and say, you know what, unless you increase the ARPU by 12%, don't pay Cisco.
So for Cisco to do this, we have certain constraints, right? So in terms of profitability, so services has a certain threshold in terms of gross margins that we look at. So we are not Aam Aadmi services, kind of thing. I'll do it for peanuts or I'll do it for nothing. So there's a very high premium, and the reason because it's a very high premium, it's a primarily product and solutions attached, and we only do it on a case by case basis. That being said, if this was a really transformational deal and our top transformational account customer said, please take this on, I know one case, but I don't know the details of it, then we might consider it. Yeah.
It almost seems, and I'm not an expert on this, but it's
Yeah.
good to see that there's a structured way of looking at
Yeah, absolutely. There is. So I in fact, on the video I was showing, there are a lot more videos on YouTube. I'd encourage you to take a look at it. SAP talks about how they're evolving their software and services business to outcomes. The head of Microsoft Consulting comes in there and talks about how they're evolving. So this is pretty serious because so there's another chart in this which I didn't show. So there's the revenue kind of flatlining, dipping, going down. There's a cost kind of going up and down, and then there's the profitability kind of staying flat, right? So they call it the trout. What is it? The trowlet. I don't eat fish, so I'm just struggling with the name. The fish that's fat in the middle with the bulge, and then there's a thin fish. You want to get to the thin fish. So this is not again for the kicks. This is because pure services companies are struggling. This is because companies that have been doing the traditional, I'll make a release, I'll release it, and it's your headache to consume it, are also seeing pushback, and it's also because of the disruptions that an Amazon Web Service and others are bringing to the market, right? So most of the top level suppliers that at least I am aware of are on this journey already. Will they be successful? I don't know. We'll find out.
To me, unless you can come up with a more clear value proposition for the end customer, it seems like.
So that's what the KPI. So we were talking about. If I can go back, right? Let's.
For companies like analytical based companies, it's more easy to have such deals with us. And companies like Cisco, where you are making a difference in the IT spending. So yes, it is a little difficult.
No, even Oracle. No, even on Oracle or SAP, it's difficult, right? So unless you have a SAP, you have a module for oil and gas, and that module for oil and gas, which I know they do have, is going to directly reduce OPEX by this much or grow revenue by this much. You still have to show line of sight. So why did I talk about KPIs? It's to show them that line of sight. And today what I'm trying to say is most of us do KPIs in the usage space. Okay, you use this much of storage, you use this many software licenses, then you need to move along that curve to say, okay, Mr. Customer, this usage translates into this much of improved uptime or increased efficiency or improve in compliance, which basically then translates into reduced cost of sales, right? Or reducing the cost per transaction or reducing a customer churn. So unless you can show that line of sights, unless you can connect the dots, it just becomes a talking value proposition. So.
I guess my question is, I agree with you. The metrics have changed. But what you produce versus what the consumer really benefits the consumer is. To me, again, this is just a fancy, this is just a devil's thought.
Yeah.
It's a fancy way of saying this will be the potential translated benefit to you at some point.
No, so it is not fancy when the customer says, I love this, I'll pay you only if you deliver on this. So then you have to deliver on it, right? So if you don't get paid when you deliver on it, then it has just become a substitute for a TCO tool.
Exactly.
Now the customer is saying, okay, you understand what my outcome is, what my pain point is, I'll pay you when I achieve it. Then it becomes tangible. Otherwise, it's just a substitute for a ROI TCO tool. Sorry, not doing what?
I'll prove it to you and then you pay it.
In some cases, yes. So we are, I mean, like I said, I was saying it's a journey. We have deals that we have won based on outcomes. But it's sorry.
As a demonstration.
Yes, but we are not. What I'm saying is this is not for every customer. This is not for every market segment. So we're not going to go to market and say we're going to flood the market with outcome-based solutions and offers, and because then our, who knows. So in the longer scheme of things, will this be profitable? Will this yield sustained profitability? See, you're taking money from somewhere else and you're putting it into this, right? And right now you're trying to kind of test this and pilot this and see if this will work, right? It better work, because otherwise your traditional core business is either flat or it's kind of falling, right? So yeah, we are still in that phase, but yes, we have demonstrable wins and success stories.
It could be just one way of positioning yourself as to these are the kind of benefits which are kind of.
You can't, and that's what he's talking about. If you just go in there and say these are potential benefits, at your next customer QBR, customer will say, buddy, where is my KPI scorecard? And you will say, I'll get back to you, and your deal is gone.
Yeah, you should have a gut feel, right? Okay, you don't pay me this if I'm not showing you the lift in your this thing or whatever.
Sorry, you should have a gut feel.
A gut feel or confidence of your deployment when you're proposing to a customer.
No, so you do the math, right? So you come up with the KPIs before you go and pitch this to the customer. And if you're confident of the KPIs, now the KPIs are dependent on the customer giving you data, that is for sure. But if you are confident of your KPIs, then you know you can deliver on it.
That you are the customer, it's a continuous engagement.
Yes.
Similar customer, other part.
It's definitely a subscription annuity business. It's definitely not for a transaction 3-month engagement. Yeah. So good point. I should have mentioned this earlier. Please don't try this if you're trying to go to a customer and work with them for 30 days or a quarter or whatever. This is not for that. And that is why I was telling you, when we approach customers with this, the discussion goes from a 6-month, 1-year discussion to how do we do this multi-year. Because for you to show any meaningful or statistically significant improvement on the KPIs, it is going to take time.
So, but some of these outcomes may not be so tangible at the beginning, right? So, a lot of exploratory partnerships that we are trying to engage with customers to give us specific.
See, start with what you have, right? So what I am saying is, you have some customer knowledge today. You've been selling to these customers, you're working for these customers, you're deploying with these customers. Start with what you have, and then you tell them, this is where we want to go. This is how we are doing it. Right? I don't have answers to all the business outcomes that are in there. I don't have the algorithms, but we have guys who are working on nothing but KPIs day in and day out and trying to figure it, working with the customers. So every quarter we go to the QBR and say, these are the KPIs. Now we want to build the next set of KPIs. Will you help us? And let's sit down and work together. Right?
So one example of this is I work for a company called Fujitsu. So we have
Right.
these infrastructure as services which is there. So transform the data center. So one of the Netherlands banks that we did, it was same thing. So the initial 3 years, then after the transformation is stabilized, then the customer, each customer call to the bank with the end customer who's calling, and a rating is coming for that, and based on that rating, the payment comes through. So, but for the first 3 years, the customer pays, yeah. So that's a fixed deal. And then after that, it's like this. So that's the basic.
It seems to me that a lot of these deals, services and solution groups or product companies are going through. So a very critical skill, in fact with the product management slide that I like the way you put it in, what are the implications? It's almost like a product manager has to now become an insurance specialist, an actuarial guy who has to crunch the numbers to figure out how much do I charge now to cover my base, how much can I expect. That's what insurance guys does, and they put a premium on each one of your lives, right?
Yeah.
Your life premium is $300 and yours is $310, hoping that none of you will die for a long time, but if you do, then hopefully the other 99 should live. Continue to pay me, so using those payments I'll pay you.
So let me say that in a different way. What features and functionality do I have today in my portfolio that I know for sure can enable these KPIs that I'm confident of? What are the features and functions that I need to build in the future to support other KPIs? What are the KPIs that I don't even want to speak to? Right? So you must have these 2-3 buckets in your mind as a product manager, right? And then the next question that's going to come is, how do you measure it? Okay. Yeah, it's a great discussion. So I learned a few things. So thanks for that. And I think we were also talking about other examples from other industries. So GE is doing this, Bosch is doing this. So it's not just high tech. Yeah. So yeah, they don't have to do real work. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Are they building a product? No, right? I hope not. Yeah. Yeah. All right. No, if there are any questions or comments.
Right? When you make this proposal, it doesn't have to be the engaging customer in the second year or third year, right? It can be a new customer.
Absolutely.
And
So the greenfield.
experience of dealing with a similar field.
Yeah.
So when we have the metrics and all with another peer or customer, so we can go with that.
So in fact, I'll give you an example. So there's a new segment of customers, what we call web OTT customers. Apple, Facebook, Google. They think very differently. They don't want to buy products, they don't want to buy licenses, they don't want to buy a support contract. They're like, it's all open source, man. You know, I have software defined networking, I have the power of cloud, I have millions of racks of servers, I'll hire the best developers I can. What's all this stuff? And they are the guys pushing us for this. Very interesting. Brand new set of customers. We call them web OTT, over the top. They're saying, I want to consume your technology in the way that I want to achieve my business outcome. These guys didn't exist. These companies didn't exist when Oracle or an IBM or even a Cisco was founded. So they are the ones who are kind of pushing the envelope, so to speak. And I'm sure in that sense, the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals will do the same in India as well. Because the way they consume technology, and these are companies for whom, although technology is not their core business, technology is in their DNA. Technology is their business. So you better have a better answer to them than somebody else. So
push the envelope even further. At Intel, we are trying to collaborate with companies like Oakley and Ray-Ban. Like I'm working on the wearable and IoT space, and we are looking at as to how can you give us a piece of technology that can create an outcome which can give us a fighting space against the Google Glass kind of products. So it's an outcome that they are expecting, but they don't know, and even honestly, we don't know how to do a measurement KPI for that. So.
Yeah. Great discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rajesh, for the very interesting topic that you covered today, and pretty challenging. I think it really gives us a new level that we need to reach as product leaders, and thank you so much for this. I'd like to now invite Professor Pinkesh to come and hand over this memento to Rajesh for that. And after this, we're going to have a networking session. So please join us. Professor Pinkesh, please come over.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's fine. Thank you.
So when I first met Rajesh, I thought product management in services organization is like an oxymoron. Right? But I'm so glad that you're here, and I think there is a whole level of service product manager as a concept that I think is going to evolve as we go. So thanks a lot for stopping by on a Saturday evening. I know
That's a lot harder to pull you out on a Saturday than maybe a weekday.
Yeah.
But absolutely thrilled to have you here.
No,
Yeah.
great to have here and meet
you.
with all of you. So hopefully you got something out of it.
Yeah.
Thanks.